Hello. Okay. So welcome everybody. I wanted to thank all of you to be part of this presentation. It's our honor to invite Professor Tomizuka from University of Berkeley, University of California at Berkeley. He is a distinguished professor at the Department of Mechanical Engineering. Professor Tomizuka received his bachelor and master degree from Keio University in 1968 and 1970, respectively. He received his PhD from MIT in 1974, and after he joined mechanical engineering at UC Berkeley, he served as a vice chair of instruction from December 1986 to December 1999, as a vice chair of graduate studies from 1995 to December 1996. He's currently the Associate Dean of Academic Affairs for College of Engineering at UC Berkeley. From 2009 to 2011, he was an Executive Associate Dean for the College of Engineering at UC Berkeley. He also served as a Program Director of Dynamic Systems and Control Program at National Science Foundation from 2002 from 2004. Professor Tomizuka's research interests including optimal and adaptive control, digital control, signal processing, motion control, mechatronics, and their application in robotics, manufacturing, data storage devices, vehicles, and human-machine systems. On a personal side, this is my encounter to Professor Tomizuka. His student, Wei, is my intern when I was working at Honda Research. And I get to visit Professor Tomizuka's lab back then in, I think, 2018. I think that's the first time I met Professor Tomizuka. And I think afterwards, especially this year, I'm really thankful for Professor Tomizuka's support because we host a trip to visit UC Berkeley, and we wanted to look for different ideas in robotics. And Professor Tomizuka very helpful. He invited all his colleagues from mechanical engineering to participate in this visit. And we learned a lot of things from there. And I also found Professor Tomizuka always responds very, very fast. And this is very amazing. Under his so many different duties and also many different activities, he always respond very swiftly and really appreciate all his supports. And this time, National Science Foundation in Taiwan is going to visit UC Berkeley one more time. And this is, again, thanks Professor Tomizuka's support. He invited all his colleagues to participate in this activity. So then we can, our country is currently investing many fundings into intelligent robots. And we get to learn from all the advances in UC Berkeley. So today, Professor Tomizuka is going to share with us his career path, highlights from his career, and message to pass on. So let's give a warm applause to welcome Professor Tomizuka to give us this talk. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for a nice introduction. And he may have expected a larger audience, ambitious, but it's fine. Okay, so we can have a very intimate seminar. And I'm from the UC Berkeley, and I'm becoming 80 years old next year. So it's a good moment for me to look back and what I was doing, and I'll share my experience with you. And it's summary of what Professor Chen introduced me. So I was at so-called Keio Gijuku for 18 years. Keio is a very nice private school. Once you enter at any level, you cannot go up without any further entrance exam. So I just took exam to enter the elementary school. Then I got my MS in 1970. And at that time, I went to MIT and got PhD in 74. And now from 74, I've been teaching at UC Berkeley. Okay. So why did I enter mechanical engineering department of Keio? So that's some personal history, but I liked mathematics. I found it when I was in junior high school, and mathematics was lots of fun, and motivated me to go to so-called some special class when I was in the final year of high school. They make some special class for those entering, so aiming to go to engineering, medicine, and so forth. So I was in that special class. Okay, so I was interested in engineering and medicine, and actually I could go either way, but finally I decided to go to engineering, okay, because my father convinced me I could go either way, but my father had strong wish that I become mechanical engineer, so I followed his wish, and I entered there. Okay, now going to the college, university, so I was enjoying the curriculum. Still I liked mathematics. So when I was coming to the senior year at the college, we have to decide some laboratory to belong, okay, just for doing some graduation thesis. So I like mathematics, and in mechanical engineering, vibration sounded very much mathematics oriented. So I decided to do some vibration. So I selected the laboratory. But in the lab, we normally do so-called group reading, and the book we used for group reading was not about vibration, but on control. The book came out, Modern Control Theory, and it has a lot of nice mathematics, linear algebra, differential equation, calculus variation, and it was a nice, beautiful collection of the theory. So I was very much interested in control theory. So when I was to select a graduation thesis topic, I talked with my professor that I don't want to do vibration, but I would like to do research on control. And he was not an expert in control, but he formulated a problem for me. The problem he formulated was, suppose the control system is hit by two disturbances. And when the first disturbance comes in, I know when the second disturbance comes. Then what do you do? Okay, and he is not a control major, so he didn't give me further technical advice. So I went to the library and I looked at the papers, and one found some relevant paper written by Oldenburger. It turns out to be he's a giant of control theory. So I wrote a thesis extending his work. And then I think everybody liked, and my thesis was put into some publication from the engineering school of Keio. So that went quite well. So this is Oldenburger's book. Actually, I found one of his paper, but I later found that he also wrote a book called Optimal Control. So I went to the library and I looked for the book, but I was told that the book the library does not have. But the professors buy book and make a record of the buying at the library. And the librarian told me that this book, the Professor Tomizawa, on the right-hand side, his name is there. You read Tomizawa. Professor Tomizawa has a book, so go and ask him whether he can borrow his book. So I went to him and borrowed his book. So that's a copy of the book, and for some reason the book now belongs to me, but that's another story. But it's interesting. Oldenburger was a really giant in the control theory, and he was a pioneer, and I came to know his name at many occasions. And in the ASME, American Society of Mechanical Engineers, there is an award called Oldenburger Medal, and the ASME group established the medal to honor his contribution. So I happened to receive that medal many years later, but it's a very famous figure. And another person, so his name appears on the right, it's called Tomizawa. And later, I think by some destiny, he became my father-in-law later, but I was not planning to become his son-in-law at that time, but the event happened that way. So you never know what will happen to your life. Okay, so I graduated Keio, undergraduate, and without any hesitation, I decided to go to the Master of Science course. But unfortunately, I noticed that there was no curriculum really well nicely made program on control when I was a student. So I had to do lots of things myself. So essentially, I did my self-study, reading a lot of books. Turns out that it was a good experience for me. And I really looked for new books. So Maruzen is a book company in Japan who has all kinds of nice textbook from abroad. And there I found one book. I was fascinated. It's a book called Vector Space Method by the David Ruenberger. Ruenberger was a Stanford professor. I really liked the book, so it was a kind of big purchase for me, but I decided to buy the book immediately, and I literally read from one corner to the other corner. I thoroughly read this book. That's why this photo looks so indicating my intense reading. And after reading, while I was reading the book, I essentially worked on every exercise problem myself and write down solution. And one problem, I saw that there could be some room for extension. So I did some extension, and I submitted to technical journal, controlled journal in transaction in Japan, and it was accepted without much problem. So it became my first publication in professional journal. But there was no curriculum at the school, and I was hungry to look for some new papers, new trend of the research and so forth. And when I was a student in the late 1960s, there was no internet. So it's very difficult to get information from the internet. What I had to do is to go to library and take a look of the most recent periodical, like IEEE Transaction, ASME Transaction, even some Russian journal. And that was the way that I got some new ideas. And there was some international conference. It was not an option for a student like me to attend international conference. It's expensive to go abroad. So around that time, that kind of international conference, some established professor gets some fellowship from government and go to the international conference, and they typically hold some reporting meeting, okay, and they talk about now in the world, this is a kind of new trend and so forth, and that's place where I learned about Kalman filtering, etc. But I thought that that's not a good way to learn new things. So the best thing for me is to go to the United States. Going to Russia was not an option, so I wanted to go to United States. That became my dream. And so I applied several schools. Actually, I applied 5 schools. I asked all kinds of professors to write me references. And I was lucky enough to get admission from MIT with financial support. They say that I can be hired as a research assistant, and monthly salary is $650. Around that time, it was 360 yen for a dollar, and converted to the yen. My professor at Keio told me that, oh, you earn more than I do. Okay, so that's a kind of time. But that made it possible to come to the MIT. And in 1970, I started my PhD study at MIT. Now, yes?
Professor, do you mind if we ask you questions during your
Sure,
talk?
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Could you please go back to the previous slide, please? So the second bullet you mentioned about a senior professor will attend international conferences, and then they will have this reporting events from each other. But as you said, as a master students, that you don't have the opportunity to attend this event, right?
Yeah,
so
because it's expensive
it's very
proposition,
expensive.
yeah.
So you mentioned that at that moment you felt it would be a very precious opportunity if you can attend the conferences so that you can meet other people. So how you get to realize that means how you realize it's very important to attend international conference so that you can learn more new stuff from there.
Yeah, I was interested in getting what is the research, the updated research. I wanted to pursue that kind of research. So instead of attending conference, it's more direct thing for me is to go to school in the United States or even Russia and participate research there. So and I think that most students didn't attend international conference at that time. I could attend domestic conference. It was cheap, but international conference, airfare was just outrageous, right? Okay.
So what you also mentioned, is it because you also next step you apply a graduate study in the U.S. Is it because back then the control theory, all the advances in control theory is happening in the United States? So you wanted to go to the United States to pursue those knowledge?
Yes, control theory in 1960s, 1970s, new theories were coming from either US or Russia, because there was some Sputnik of the space exploration. That's the motivation for the new theory, okay, optimization and so forth. So all the activities were in the US and Russia. That was most visible. Of course, there must have been some development other European countries, but it was not in my radar screen, okay?
Thank you.
Yeah, stop me anytime. So PhD study at MIT. When I got MIT, I essentially said that I'm interested in optimal control. The research assistantship I got from MIT was a little bit unique. I could choose any topic, so I said optimal control. Then I was told that, okay, you work with Dr. Whitney, Daniel Whitney. He was an assistant professor, and in fact, I became his first PhD student. As a young student from Japan, I didn't know him that well, so I had worried a bit. But it turns out that he is a sort of ideal supervisor for me. Okay, so in the first meeting, I think he told me something interesting. Okay, you do some good research and teach me what you have done. Okay, that's how the PhD should work. Okay, it's not something like I give you any instruction every day. So I thought, oh, that's a good word. And I think I do say the similar thing to my PhD student, especially those students who may be slow at the beginning. Okay, but it's a nice thing to remember. And MIT actually was a very nice place for PhD study. Because this is MIT, and lots of courses on advanced control courses in ECS department, in ME department, in Aero department. So there are lots of courses. And Professor T.T. Chen took me to some museum in the computer science in the CS building here. So at that time, 1970, yes, the department has IBM 1130. There is no IBM 1130 in your museum, but it was a very old computer. It has got card reader. You have to, and I think if you have a card reader, you are a hero. Okay, so that kind of thing. Okay, so on the other hand, at Keio, what they had was a big calculator, not computer, calculator. And to use calculator, I have to sign up. So I was shocking, wow, that they use very nice computer. And also under this dome, they have a nice engineering library. It's a nice place to take a nap, but also lots of books. And also student center library. Library was really nice. It was open 24/7. You could go anytime. And it was very comfortable. Lots of cubicles that you can have your own corner. And there are some people actually living there. Okay, it's a kind of pioneer in the homeless group. Okay, they bring in the sleeping bag and toothbrush and so forth. So they literally occupy one cubicle, and they were living there. And sometimes I slept in the library, but it was nice and comfortable. And first year, what kind of research did I do? Okay, as a research assistant, I was working with Don Whitney, and I was assigned to a project on automated highways. 1970s automated highway, it was very kind of pioneering project by itself. So there was some study I have to do. How do I do nice spacing control, headway control of the string of vehicles? Okay, so there was a scheme, and we have to figure out what to do during normal operation and what to do during emergency. Emergency, every car has to bring to stop the very safe way. So Whitney explained to me his idea about normal control scheme. He was proud that he came this idea while he was sunshining in the beach. Okay, so he explained to me so much detail, and what I had to do was to figure out the details of what he was thinking. So Whitney told me that I should do research myself and tell him, but it was quite contrary. He gave me everything. Okay, so for emergency control, I came up with very nice scheme myself. Okay, so that was my idea, and two combined, it became IEEE transaction technical paper. So Whitney was happy. And I was doing another project. It's on some servo controls, so-called servo control. How do I make tracking of some signals? Okay, and I wrote a paper and submitted to a journal in England. And without much revision, the paper was accepted by the journal. So Whitney was very impressed. Wow, so he gained some confidence about what I'm doing. So since then, my relation with Whitney was very easy. He approved almost everything I did. And I passed qualifying exam during the first year. So emergency control for the automated highway systems became actually a kind of part of my oral presentation. And so that was a good thing. Then my friend suggested I had sort of fiance. He said that if you have already passed qualifying exam, I should go back to Japan and get married. So at the beginning of the summer, I wrote to my future wife that I'm coming back in this fall, so prepare for our wedding. So she has some different idea. She claims that I told her that we marry after I finish PhD, but she agreed, and my brother and she arranged everything, and I successfully married and came back to the US. So second and third year, I was with her. And research, I worked on so-called preview control, because just vehicle control was not quite right for PhD. And witness advisor was Professor Thomas Sheridan. He was doing some pioneering work on preview control. Preview control is essentially, if you know certain amount of the future information, how do you make use of future information to decide control? So he had some idea, and he wrote some good paper, but I had to formulate again and solve in my way, and he gave me support from his NASA grant. Okay, so I think I will apply some optimal control. Optimal control was a theory I was very good at that moment. And optimality for that kind of problem, there should be some time span I should judge optimality. But that global time duration. But future information available only very small amount of future. So some local future and global optimality, how do I combine? That was an interesting point of this preview control study. And I had to think about for a while, but then after I realized that, oh, I can look at this problem from stochastic point of view, stochastic control point of view. If future is not well known in advance, at least I assume that statistical information is available. So it turns out to be a nice way to look at the problem. So it took me about 2 years to solve the problem. And essentially my research was done in 2 years. And this is the preview control to give you some idea of what I was doing. It's like car driving. You look ahead of road ahead of you and decide what kind of steering action you have to take. But the situation may be that it's very foggy and you cannot exactly see anything beyond 5 meters. But you don't assume that the road will make abrupt change, but there must be some smooth change. So I used that aspect to formulate the problem. I had some mathematical model for the vehicle, and I have some optimality. Optimality is stay close to the desired road center line and don't do excessive control. That's a typical the performance index, but preview of road ahead is really limited for the preview time. So under this formulation, I could do stochastic control and solve the problem. The grant was coming from NASA, and NASA was interested in so-called manual tracking. Essentially, this is a scheme of the manual tracking I did, and I applied optimal control to analyze this situation. Human is watching at screen, and in this screen, I think the almost early version of the game, the waveform is moving from right to the left. New points applied to the right and just move to the left. Okay, so when I was testing the screen, it really looks like that the wave moving from left, from right to left. So I was very happy. And my dot is the output of what human is controlling. Human up and down the joysticks, and with dynamics that dot moves up and down. Okay, so we make a record and we analyze how human does do. Of course, if you have longer preview, human does much better tracking than compared to very short preview. Okay, so that was what the experimental part. And this is my dissertation page. And on the right, I have a photo of Don Whitney, he my supervisor. Tom Sheridan was also in my committee, and Sheridan was happy, both of them quite happy about this work. So I finished essentially by September 1973. Okay, so after completing PhD at MIT, I was thinking to go back to Japan and actually start teaching at Keio, but my friend convinced me that I should stay longer. My friend even told me that if you live in the state, you can afford to have 2 cars. You can afford to live in a big house and so forth. I was not interested in that monetary aspect, but I thought that having more research experience would be nice. So I wrote letters to several professors doing some nice work in control, asking whether they are looking for a postdoctoral researcher. And most of them say that you have a nice background, but they don't have immediate some funding plan. But Berkeley responded to me that they may have a teaching position in 1 year. So they encouraged me to apply for that position, but I couldn't wait in the US without any job. So I still decided to go back to Japan. And then I thought that I would not come back to the state for a long time. So I drove from Massachusetts to California. It was a nice continental driving trip. So I visited many, many places. And when I come to California, I was lucky I could come to California just before the Thanksgiving holidays. So I stopped by at Berkeley, and I was surprised that the chairman of the department gave me a nice welcome. He organized my day visit, and that resulted in my interview, job interview in the next March. Okay, and then after that, I could fairly smoothly got an offer from Berkeley, and I started teaching at Berkeley in 1974. So I was not planning this kind of teaching position, but I learned this is Berkeley. What I can say now is do not miss chances. That chances just came to me, and if I didn't utilize these chances, I would have a lifetime regret. So I'm glad that I really decided to join Berkeley. Some side story, another thing I learned was I published the content of my PhD dissertation, essentially one pair of papers talking about the same thing, and one published in Japanese transactions, and the other published in IEEE transactions. The interesting thing is if I go look at how many times each paper have been cited, the Japanese paper citation is only 14 as compared to 301 of the IEEE paper. So from this, I learned that it is important to disseminate your research in the international scene and having impact. If you'd like to make impact to the field, I have to do this. So that's another thing I learned. I'd like to mention promotion and advancement at the University of California, because that one think I have to survive. Now I'm on a reverse position that I look at promotion, the merit of every professor, engineering professor, and I'm responsible for that. But at the beginning, I really didn't know much about it. So assistant professor in the United States, it's not tenured, untenured. Essentially, it's a term contract, typically only 2 years. So after 2 years, you are evaluated, and if it's okay, its contract is renewed. And if successful, and after 6 years, you normally get tenure. Tenure means that you can stay at the university indefinitely. Then for another 6 years, you can get promoted to full professor. Well, that's how the system works. And what they check is we check research accomplishment, whether anybody is publishing impactful paper in the reputed archival transactions, reputed conferences. So it's important. And teaching, student evaluation is very important. This professor is a very effective teacher. If you have that kind of reputation, it's good. And also mentoring the student, how many graduate student, undergraduate student research you supervised. You have to be a good citizen, service record, what kind of committee did you serve, and also both at the university or even in professional society and so forth. They are all integrated. And this is a kind of typical promotion system in the UC Berkeley. And assistant professor, associate professor, essentially every 2 years we do review. Okay, it goes by one step. And after you become full professor, review becomes every 3 years. But essentially review continues. Okay. So this is a normal progression. And the vertical axis shows the steps, but essentially closely tied to how much compensation you can get from the university. And of course, you'd like to move as quickly as possible. In the US, you don't have to follow this normal pattern. Some people can move up this ladder quite quickly, or some move slowly, and some stop somewhere. So at the University of California, for me, everything was new. I never taught in the US. So especially in English, that was a big challenge. And Professor Changlin Tian, he was a department chairman at that time. He's from Taiwan. And he's advised me that don't just publish paper with your senior professors in the same field. Okay, so it's Japanese system, always some assistant professor publish paper with senior professor. He told me not to do that. He told me I should publish paper with graduate student. And by the way, Chanlin Tian is a very established guy. He became the chancellor of the UC Berkeley later. But for some illness, he passed away fairly young for his age. He never hit 70 years old. And his word, establish yourself, this does not mean to discourage you from collaboration with other professors. And in fact, nowadays, the research, every field is become multidisciplinary, and only one single professor can do. Things are limited. So collaboration is even fun. In that sense, making center and doing collaboration is a very good idea. So it's important. So, but when you publish, I have to be careful when I was young. And I characterized my control of mechanical systems, a sort of mechatronics work. And my mechatronics work, I think when I became tenure as associate professor, it really start gaining momentum. This is the explanation of mechatronics, synergistic integration of physical systems, decision-making methodology like control, and electronics information technology. Okay, the computer, DSP, CPU, GPU, etc., etc. So this diagram shows what I said in the previous slide. I have physical mechanical systems in the middle and decision-making methodology at the top, and this information technology at the bottom. I have to synthesize. When I was doing my PhD, I used PDP-8 computer. It's a very old 8-bit computer, but it was really a computer. And when I moved to Berkeley, department has PDP-11, DEC PDP-11 computer. PDP-11 I found in your museum. Okay, then from there, some large-scale integration introduced, and more slow. The computer performance just kept increasing. Now DSP, GPU, etc. They are nice tools. And also decision-making. When I was doing my PhD, optimal control Kalman filtering theory, that was the most forefront control theory, but then new idea has been introduced. So in the middle, I have a number, that's time. As time goes on, there are lots of new ideas came in, and now AI methodology is really hitting this area. And the kind of system we are talking about is intelligent robot, autonomous vehicle, some robotic system for medical application and so forth. Now something physical AI is coming into more decent fashion. Physical AI can really do some AI-like function real time, so you can do lots of nice things. Okay, this is for the physical AI. Almost any system adapt to the environment performance very quickly. Okay. With physical AI, robots can be built and trained to seamlessly interact with and adapt to their surroundings in the real world. So this is kind of my group development. I called Mechanical Systems Control Laboratory, Mechatronics. In the 1970s and 1980s, new adaptive control theory came. Adaptive control idea has been there for a long time, but stability was always an issue. But people found Lyapunov stability, hyperstability, etc. are very useful to make sure that the adaptive control really works. I learned adaptive control theory based on hyperstability from a French guy, Johan Landau. He was visiting the Berkeley for some time. And then I published a book on adaptive control. This book was published in middle of 1966, Theory and Practice of Adaptive Control Systems. So book was published in Japanese, and there is a story attached to this book. And one of my students from Taiwan, he was motivated to translate this book into English. So he prepared English version. And about at the same time, in the middle of 1980s, I had opportunity to visit Taiwan. Somebody cooked up that opportunity for me and gave a short course on adaptive control at Italy, okay, so in Hsinchu. I think that was my first visit to Taiwan. And I gave a course, and the course included computer lab. computer laboratory part. And two of my students visited with me to Italy, and they took care of computer lab. And one of them is now president of National Taiwan University of Science and Technology. So it's a long time ago, but it's an interesting memory. Anyhow, around that time, we worked on adaptive control of machining process, adaptive welding process control, direct drive robot arm, and also California started so-called PATH program. It's an automated highway systems and how you can make the vehicle run on automated highway systems, and I was involved in automated steering systems control. By the way, around that time, I had a lot of students from Taiwan. Okay, if I look at the first 20 or so, first my PhD student, about one half were from Taiwan. So they contributed a lot to shape my activities. By 2015 or so, I had a lot of new mechanical system hardware, from machining center, big truck, to on the small side, computer. Oops, something missing, but. Oh, okay, it was in this slide. It was not in my previous screen. Okay, so lots of hardwares. And in the middle, I had always decision-making control theory. So it was a control theory-centered mechatronics research that was done by the middle of 2015. And then this is now how the program looks like. And two pillars. One is intelligent industrial robot, and the other one is autonomous vehicles. So we had done lots of research on these topics. It's fun. And some new addition to the project is in the robot area, some teleoperation. Teleoperation is a very nice way of getting human idea translated into AI systems. So this is one way of gaining human skills. Okay. And also gripper design is also interesting. This is one of my visitors from Hong Kong. He is a very accomplished hardware developer. So he made some kind of gripper almost like, do you know Doraemon? Doraemon is a Japanese cartoon character. His hand can pick up almost anything, round, but he made exactly looks like Doraemon's hand, and he can pick up very sheet, small grain, almost anything he can pick up. So that kind of hardware-oriented research is also interesting. Now, let me look back. I think if I look up my career path, definitely there are two big milestones. One was when I decided to go to MIT, and the other one is I decided to join UC Berkeley. I think if I missed any chance one of these, I never imagined that I'm doing like this myself now. And I think I'm a bit proud. I have a strong determination, concentration, curiosity, and perseverance. And those, I think, made me always move forward. On the other hand, I don't think I had a very nice career strategic planning of my career path, because strategic planning, if you know the top of the mountain, you plan how you go there. I couldn't see the top of the mountain when I was young. Like preview control, I could only locally. So I try to optimize my time and effort best in that environment. So I try my best every day and every stage of my career. And I liked research and teaching, fortunately, that's why I could kept running. And also in the US, you have to think about research and make an idea. Many people say that research, when you know what problem you would like to solve, it's more than half done. Writing research proposal was always a good exercise for me because I can see what I want to do, why I want to do this, and what kind of methodology I might even develop. So that's a very good, meaningful way to plan research. And in my case, also merit promotion systems that I was explaining was give me a sort of nice short-term goal. If I work hard, okay, so I can get tenure, then I can get full professor, and then step I would like to climb as fast as possible. So that was a very good motivation for me. Now some takeaway and suggestions, especially to young people. So maybe whatever you plan to do, I would like you to cherish each day. Okay, time don't waste. And you have to also find what is your interest is. And while you are need to be sensitive to what's going on in the world around you, but something you can have interest, it's very important to develop that idea. Then you have more strongly motivated. And I made a statement, but I didn't want to lose chance. But always look for chance and challenge. Some young violinist I like, Japanese violinist, says that if you don't challenge, nothing will happen. That's quite true. Okay, so always do something challenging. And if you are research-oriented, join and proactive in research community, and either domestic or international. And once you have find nice result, of course, disseminate your result in the international community. But just doing that is not enough. I think some young people, what I have some concern is in Japan, they tend to always look inward. I don't see many Japanese students coming abroad. Taiwan, maybe something similar thing may be happening. I used to have a lot of students applying from Taiwan, and the number is decreasing. So I learned that once you get master's degree, you get a very nice job opportunities in Taiwan. So you might lose motivation to go abroad, but always have ambition to come abroad. And people speak very good English now, so you can come to the state any time. It could be visiting opportunity, maybe postdoc, visiting researcher, or international student. There are variety. And finally, if you go to academia, one thing important is you have to think about how you can train the next generation. We are responsible for training the next generation of researcher leaders. And in my case, I looked that each student are different. I didn't want to make clone of another student instead of same type many, but I would like to train students, each with some different characteristics. So my approach is not to disturb student talent. I give the kind of domain that they should do research, maybe funding related to, but otherwise I'll give maximum freedom. And at the same time, I realize that young researchers, whether it's student or postdoc or young assistant professor, they are much more flexible brain than I do. Okay, so I appreciate their flexibility. And also, young people can take risks, maybe calculated risks. Okay, so that's a good thing. And senior professors, as you get more senior and senior, you have to provide consistent support and challenging research environment. By now, from my group, 154 students graduated with PhD. So that's a lot of numbers, but interesting statistics is about 1/5 of that population are from Taiwan. At the beginning, about 1/2 of my students were from Taiwan. So in terms of the percentage, it's decreasing, but it's still a significant number. Okay. Finally, I give acknowledgement to people, teachers at Keio MIT, colleagues of Berkeley, and my student, and sponsor of my research. Okay, thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Professor Tomizuka, for your very thoughtful and also wonderful experience sharing. For now, I wanted to open the opportunity to the especially young generations. Any questions from a young generation wanted to asking question to Professor Tomizuka? Yes.
Hello, Professor. I want to ask that what's the biggest difference when you first time went to America and to study your PhD? What's the biggest difference you encountered between the research life in Japan and the research life in USA?
I think when you move from one culture to another, the United States culture is much easier to adjust. Okay, so when I was teaching in Japan for 2 or 3 months after finishing PhD, I had hard time to follow the rules in Japanese culture, so in that sense. I think in the US, everything is so open. So if you come to the US, you'll find it yourself, okay?
Professor?
Thanks. The professors will speak, and I'm wondering, like you say, seize the chance, like when you got an offer from the UC Berkeley, and how do you know this is a chance, or like you just missed another chance when you accept the UC Berkeley offer?
I think my personal taste is if it has got unpredictable element and opportunities, I was always attracted. When I was in Japan, I could see what I'll be doing next 50 years. Okay, so as you get older, you will be promoted if you are doing fine. But it just go like this. Okay, in the United States, it looks like to me lots of unpredictable, uncertain aspect. So you can go this way. I liked that aspect. Okay.
And is that at that time, is there any other chance, like you?
Other than two?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
I had only 2 choices. I applied some other. I didn't apply any other university in the U.S. The chances at Berkeley just somehow came to me. Okay, and I applied, and they liked me, and I accepted. Okay, so you never know what happened to your life. I didn't know about that.
Thank you.
wonderful talk. And I would like to ask that you mentioned that you does not have a strategic planning at the beginning. And also starting from university, you've been working on the control theory. And I'm wondering what motivates you to going a deep research starting from university to MS and even the PhD?
No, very interesting question. I was fascinated by the control topic, control field. I was first attracted to this field because of the elegant theory. It's nice package of all kind of mathematics I knew. Okay, so I liked that aspect. So it was not quite right motivation from engineering point of view. Okay, so I wanted to do something in this mathematical world. But experience at MIT really changed me, influenced me a lot. I thought that I was very good in mathematics. I attended mathematics course, graduate course at MIT, and I have to say that really is a good mathematician. Is different level. They talk about different level. I was attending some analysis course, and one women student comes to the class with dog, and she has kind of slipper, green belt on right side, yellow on the other. But it seems that she follows everything. Okay, I had some trouble following all the lectures. So I saw that it's not really, I'm not trained as a mathematician. On the other hand, I was probably most theoretical in mechanical engineering department. So my students were doing lots of control research, and they had always some engineering motivation. So I learned from them, and control is really a subject, engineering subject. So then I really realized that I have to have a right motivation. Why do I use mathematics? I would like to make the engineering system behave better. Okay, so that's how I got my interest. But I still kept interest in control, because control is something always enabling technology, and I never lost interest in control. That's why I could continue. Okay.
Thanks.
Sorry, Professor, another question. I'm actually seeking some advice from experienced researchers like you. I'm currently diving into my research topic, and I have a question that whenever I found out possible problem that may be diving into, but then I will check out other related works, then I'll find out all other people have already have some perfect solutions for it. Then I feel really frustrated for that. And I want to seek some advices from you. What do you think about this?
Yeah, actually, you might think that somebody made a very good solution to the problem you selected, but it's not necessarily really the best solution. Okay, as the subject methodology part always broaden, right? So good, interesting, challenging problem in engineering, people will figure out the best solution probably within the knowledge known, say 10 years ago. Now we have the subject itself, problem itself is still remain interesting, and now you find that something new methodology. I think good example maybe is that how do you move robot while satisfying all constraint. Okay, you have to avoid collision. And that kind of problem existed for many years. And some people formulated the problem as an optimal control problem with constraint, And it's very nice solution they figured out. But now people approach that problem from computational point of view. Okay? And even AI-oriented approach. So you don't have to be discouraged by looking at somebody's nice solution. There is a chance that you can always come up with new, innovative solution, right? So keep challenging.
Thank you, Professor.
Questions? I have a lot of questions. Yeah. So, so there's one. Let me start with the first. There's two sentences that you mentioned in your talk, and that actually I was fascinated about when you said that is you wrote 2 papers in your master's degree and also maybe your first paper at MIT. And when you write a paper and submit it, you said there's not much revision, and your advisor is very happy and satisfied with that. How that happened? Because I don't think this is natural. Because when you write a paper, I think students always have the experience, including me. I have a lot of experience. Have my advisor draw a lot of comments and write a lot of things that this doesn't make sense. The logic doesn't make sense. But in your experience, your first 2 papers didn't got too much revision. And how that happened? What kind of experience you have tried before, or something you have been doing over time that makes this thing happen?
I think probably the first 2 papers, maybe review standard may not have been that strict. Okay, the first paper that I wrote based on the exercise problem from one textbook, that had some review. Okay, that was very positive review, but essentially paper was accepted. And so it was minimal revision. Another paper that I wrote at MIT with my advisor, actually I submitted to the journal called International Journal of Control. It's a kind of interesting journal. At that time, editor-in-chief had exercised lots of powers. Okay, probably he read the paper, so he thought it's okay. Or this is from MIT guy. So he may have just accepted it. Maybe I was lucky. But I decided to stop submitting the paper to that journal because at one point the quality of the journal goes up and down. And there was one guy, England professor, keep publishing his paper in that journal, just really small variation. And I started questioning what is the standard of this review. Okay, yeah. So it's not typically does not happen. Yeah.
Okay. The second question is related to when you talk about preview control. I felt this one when you talk about this particular experience. Your advisor gave you this particular problem, preview control, and as you said, the future is unpredictable. And the future information and how to combine future and historical information, it is challenging, right? So I think when you were there at that particular moment, when we imagine ourselves be in that particular position like you, I think it must suffering a lot because we don't really know what to do, right? So I think, and then you said it might be a possible reformulation using stochastic optimal control. How that happened? Is it because you have keep looking for possible directions and thinking about different strategy to reformulate it? Could you elaborate more about that particular experience?
Yeah, I think very similar work I saw when I was started working on problem was another guy, previous guy at MIT in the group. He formulated from optimal control point of view. What he did was, if I have this much preview window, he formulated problem over that interval. And he moved, then he formulated the same problem again. So kind of sliding window. And it turns out that the so-called receding horizon control became a popular subject. But at that time I saw that if you just keep optimizing for one small window, keep doing that, I never know what I optimized over global time interval. So I didn't accept that solution. So on the other hand, from stochastic point of view, I realized that what preview does is preview convert stochastic future, at least part of the stochastic feature, to deterministic future. So when I realized that, then I have a very nice solution.
So in short, I can understand your idea is when we look at the existing solution, and you mentioned that if we want to combine global and then local and optimal, and the existing solution, you are not satisfied their formulation. So then you look for other possibilities, and you found out that that particular formulation was meet your expectation.
And that my way of looking is especially useful when the preview window is so small. If it's long, it doesn't really matter what do I do. Okay, so almost everything is optimal. But if you are looking at really short distance, you don't want to overreact to this short distance window. Okay.
I see. And the next question, I always usually like to ask this question is a keyword that you also mentioned many times in your presentation is impact. Because I felt impact, this term is vague. And we said, okay, well, I wanted to make an impact to the world, but what does it mean? And sometimes it's hard if we're only looking at like senior advisors, senior people suggest that we wanted to do impactful research. But if we think about, if I standing from a younger generation perspective, when I listen to this particular advice, work on impactful research, to me, I feel there's a gap to translate this impactful research into something actionable, or something I can imagine or intuitively to imagine what does it mean to be making an impactful research. So could you please share your thoughts when you think about if I wanted to make an impactful research or high standard research, what does it mean when we take like small in our daily research activities, daily execution, what does it mean and how to translate that incrementally and ultimately will get to an impactful research?
To me, I think impact also means to what extent other people would be interested in your work. Okay, so there was some joke. IEEE transaction on automatic control is a very well-reputed journal, but at one point somebody was making joke. So every paper is super theoretical. Okay, the joke was that each paper is read only by 3 or 4 people, author himself and reviewers, and many people don't read. Okay, so that's not good. That's not making an impact. The same paper, in addition to the theoretical, the background theoretical result, if it can present why they are doing this research, motivation clear, and how it can be used, I think it can potentially become more impact. You have to motivate other people to pay attention to your work. Okay? So nowadays I think many people care, and some people should not say we should not pay too much attention. H-index score. H-index score is a bit objective measure for how many times your paper was cited by other researchers. So based on H-index score, there is even something global GP, Scholar GPS. They rank researchers in every area who will be making impact. And in doing that, they don't look at only H-index. H-index number can be increased if you do self-citation, if you have a group of people referring each other. So those self-citation is excluded. and how much your work is propagating to others. So that's impact. It could be impact is your research making a big change in industrial practice. And if you know somebody really used your method to make some influential product, that's also impact. There are lots of ways to look at, but essentially it has to affect somebody else.
Thank you. One thing I wanted to highlight is I didn't write in the beginning of my introduction. I didn't say how many awards that Professor Tomizuka have achieved over the years. There's one, he did mention one, but there's another one that I always feel this is something in as my current role as a faculty member. I always dream myself can toward that direction. So there's a award that Professor Tomizuka achieved is the National Academy of Engineering. And I think if you read the description of National Academy of Engineering, I think that's exactly what it said, is that your work can actually impact people in the world. And that can be used in our daily life. Yeah, so I get to learn this particular award is because my advisor, when I was Purdue, he also get awarded this National Academy of Engineering, and his work is on printers. And then his algorithms he developed it is basically used by all the people in the world. So that is something I feel is really amazing, and something like that can be achieved. It's not easy. Yeah. Okay, so any questions from the audience? Yes. Oh, yeah. So I think there's one. Oh. Yeah, so there's one attendees from the audience online. He asked a question. So Professor Tomizuka, thank you for your very insightful speech. If you could use one thing, an object, a symbol to represent what you have been pursuing throughout your life, what would it be?
Symbol. That's a very tough question, but I don't know. I might bring some is a Greek goddess or Italian goddess. I think the symbol, like in Greek myth, the goddess called Athena. Athena is a Greek goddess of the wisdom. Okay, and Italian the goddess is Minerva. Okay, so it might be I might put that goddess symbol as a sort of my goal. Okay, yeah.
I see. Yeah. So maybe could you spell that? How to spell that?
Minerva is Minerva. Minerva, and Athena is Athena. The story is very nice. Okay, the Athena and Minerva also the wisdom goddess, but also it's a goddess of war. Mm-hmm. Okay, and it's born. I think the father is the Almighty God. What is that? Zeus. Mm-hmm. So Zeus, it came out from the head of the Zeus, and when the Zeus had also somehow inside the Minerva, Athena was growing, and somebody told Zeus that your baby will finally overtake your power. So he just decided to keep in his body. But finally, his headache so severe, so somebody has to break his head, and Athena came out. Oh, by the way, it's a myth. So Zeus did not lose his life because of that. But then they became really a powerful goddess with wisdom and war talent, right? So it's a very nice
Thanks again. Questions from audience? Yes.
Hello. Hi. Thank you for your talk and the wonderful advices that you give to the young audience, the young researchers here, to experience as much as possible, to seize the chances and to expand the horizons. I also want to seek for advice for not so young researchers. Like I think, like for especially when you are in your early career, it's easy to spot there are many like immediate goals, like you mentioned. I want to publish my first papers. I want to maybe get the best paper awards. They are all not easy, but they are immediate goals. Like you can see them, and you want to get promotion, from assistant professor to associate, and then finally get to full professors. But I'm curious, like when you are enter your like midpoint of your career, or even later, those goals are not so clear, right? Like those immediate goals are gone, and like how do you like can you share some experience on that? Like, do you have any like up and downs, or like throughout from your middle to the later the career? How do you set up your agenda, setting up your own goals? And have you ever doubts on yourself about the research, or like for example, like you might like everyone could see the limits they could reach, right? Maybe at some point you're unsure about what's the next goal, and have you any experience on that? How you can share some experience for us?
And that's also an interesting question. I mentioned that so far I graduated 154 PhD students to completion. This does not mean that I generated 154 bright ideas myself. At the beginning, I was probably generating lots of ideas myself, but I think in the last slide somewhere, I mentioned second breath. Realize that young researchers are creative and fresh ideas, give them independence. So lots of my students, especially since I became maybe 40, 45 years old, I really encouraged my students to come up with good ideas and work with students. That's why I think, but it was Berkeley environment. Berkeley always attract the world best student. I would not have accomplished this at other small universities. Okay, so I think I always tell my also student, if you become a professor, try to become professor at one of the best universities, because student would be the big resource for any professors, really to let you grow further yourself, but not just by yourself, working with your student, right? So that's my approach, okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, if not, let's give a very warm applause to Professor Tomizuka. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor.